point of singularity being where all the combined intelligence of all computers and machines in the world exceeds the combined intelligence of all humans.
From a specialized machine builder to a global tech company, Gendermark Automation continues to drive forward-thinking tech solutions, and now we're talking the fourth industrial revolution. Join us on our journey as we talk to industry experts and discover the incredible people behind the technology. We're making the fourth industrial revolution more human. We're honored to have a member of the executive board of Expleo Group, who's responsible for Silver Atena, an innovative German company. We're excited to also be joined by the managing director of Expleo Group South Africa. As technology disrupts all established norms, bringing complexity and uncertainty, alongside new opportunities to improve the world, Expleo's mission is to help businesses harness technological change to successfully deliver innovation. They are both industry experts. Help me welcome Ralph Gillessen and Martin Sanne.
Good afternoon, Ralph, Martin. Thank you for spending time with us today, and thank you for taking time out to record this podcast with us. So I want to try and keep it casual, have a conversation, not a Q&A. So as a bit of an icebreaker, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Would you rather shop online or in person?
I must say pre-COVID, I've never shopped online. And unfortunately now even I must admit that I like it. So it's definitely a change. I don't know exactly the reason for this, but now I can definitely say that I even like shop online.
Cool.
Yeah, look, it's a mix. Depends what you're buying, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because if I'm buying a car, I'd like to go and drive it first.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good news or bad news?
My wife has
first?
bought one online this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she bought a car for the first time online. I was a little bit surprised. She sold my classic car to the dealer.
Online?
Not online,
okay.
But then she bought one online for her.
Okay.
So that is but that was probably the biggest thing that we have ever bought online.
Yeah, things are changing, eh?
That is really changing.
Yeah. Good news or bad news first?
Bad news first.
Definitely bad news first.
Yeah, I'm similar.
Oh.
Here's a bit of a controversial one. Petrol or diesel or EV? If you were to buy a car today.
We have bought two cars this year. So one is a hybrid one. That is what I'm using now. So probably even moving a little bit closer to what will be the future. But the other one, definitely not an electric one, not a hybrid one. And I think that is still a little bit closer. What I feel is still the right car for me.
I can't wait for an electric vehicle.
Really?
I would love to have that.
And what would it be? Have you kind of picked it out already?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious names. But look, I think probably any one of them will do. I've driven nearly all of them, all the ones that have been on the market up to now.
Okay.
And even a Nissan Leaf performs extremely well.
Yep.
BMW i3, i8.
Yep.
Those type
talk
of
on
things.
tap, right?
Yeah,
talk
definitely. I mean, you at a traffic light, even in a BMW i3. At a traffic light with a Ferrari next to you.
Yeah.
And when you put your foot down, that guy realizes that he actually needs to really put his foot down. He's not going to cruise away from it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think even there you can see even probably the marketing departments. I think they even have probably even people in our age more even at the target audience at the moment. I even see it now. We have at home 2 teenager girls, and they are not really into this electric vehicle at all. Yeah. Even they are now looking for a car. They either say we don't need a car at all.
Yep.
Or they even say, I don't want an electric car. That was quite an interesting thing. Even a lot of, even then they're even teammates in the sports clubs, and they are not so close to it. I think it is still more a little bit a technical thing, and it is more attractive probably even than to people in our age than really the next generation who is even then looking at it. I think that's probably something where probably even one or the other OEM still has to do a little bit of homework even then when it comes to sales and marketing departments.
Yeah. I guess that's a good segue into my first question around this concept of e-mobility. So my feeling is I think the biggest impact on the automotive industry is not necessarily going to be EVs or hydrogen or a combination, etc. It's really going to be about, in my opinion, autonomous driving. As you mentioned, the younger generation are not really interested in buying a car anymore because there's ride-sharing services, and in the future we'll have autonomous driving. What do you think is going to have the biggest impact on automotive industry from an e-mobility perspective?
From an autonomous driving
from a automotive industry perspective.
So I think autonomous driving is going to be a big step. Okay, but there are many stages of autonomy or automation, if one can call it that.
Yep.
There are already driver assist systems which keep you, like lane assist or braking assist and stuff like that, or distance assistance. So those things are available already, and I personally think it's absolutely critical that with the growing density of vehicles that these things get introduced.
Yep.
And eventually, the step from the vehicle checking on you the whole time to it actually doing it as well is a small one ultimately.
Yep.
And it's more that everybody needs to go. I always have the vision of there's this one guy that is driving a manual car still, and he's upsetting all autonomous vehicles by just crossing lanes, and they're all slowing down and keeping the distance. So
the AI is working.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting question when you look at autonomous. But when you even look at the mobility concepts and even the investments that are currently being made even by the car manufacturers, I think even a lot is even then going more into the connected, more into the electric, than into the autonomous, because I definitely believe it's a faster return than really on the autonomous driving. I think all the other, probably even more forward-looking concepts there, it's easier to monetize on this than really on the autonomous driving part.
Okay.
That is, everything is going beyond really the driver assistance system that are probably already there and will continue to be developed.
A big drive towards EV or hydrogen fuel cell and all of these greener technologies, but I think that obviously the complete life cycle needs to be understood. How your electricity is being generated, how is your hydrogen being generated, how do you recycle the components afterwards? Martin, what's your take on the complete life cycle, and from a South African perspective, what does it actually mean?
Yeah, so look, it depends on the technology you're looking at. So if one just takes a petrol or a diesel car, that's the current benchmark. Okay, and what people talk about is the parity.
Yep.
So diesel or petrol parity, and electric vehicles are destined to achieve parity from a cost point of view, life cycle cost point of view, in a couple of years' time. They might be more expensive now because they don't have the volumes.
Yep.
But certainly battery electric vehicles are heading there very fast. Hydrogen electric vehicles will be further behind. But having said that, it looks you have to look at what usage is it? Is it a light electric vehicle? Is it a transport vehicle, truck, bus, and so on? And the parity for a hydrogen electric vehicle is very much sooner if it's a heavy vehicle.
Yep.
So if you're driving buses or trucks and so on.
Yep.
So you have to differentiate when you look at it, but in general, from a total life cycle viewpoint, if you look at service and maintenance during the life cycle as well, electric vehicles will become much more efficient. Okay, and much more cost efficient, but also user friendly. I don't need to change the oil every 10,000 kilometers.
Yep.
Simple stuff like that. I don't have a clutch that wears out. I've got electric motors. I can do energy recovery with the electric motor as a generator and things like that. And if one looks at that complete cycle, electric and battery electric and hydrogen electric vehicles will become a lot more efficient. People ask what happens to the battery after a certain time. And yes, batteries do also have limited lifetime. But there are programs around looking at how to recycle the battery, the material inside. It is a valuable material, so it's worth recycling.
Yep. You don't lose the lithium.
You don't use the lithium. And there's also moves to make the batteries use more environmentally friendly materials, So, in toys, you already have materials that once the battery's dead, completely dead, you actually dump it in water.
Okay.
And it neutralizes it.
Wow.
Okay, and it becomes environmentally degradable.
Okay.
So, but that's at toy level. You can't stick that into a car. But you can see how battery technology is changing. That's the one aspect. The other aspect is these batteries have a long life, and I've experienced it already where factories in Johannesburg are deploying what they call second life batteries.
Yep.
So they come from the United States, out of Nissan Leafs and BMWs and whatever, and they get deployed into a factory as a backup power supply.
Yep.
And then they have another 5 to 10 years of life left in them until they need to get recycled. So there's ways of dealing with it.
Yeah, I've actually got a second life Nissan Leaf battery running my house, as an example. And I think that with the power issue we have through a lot of Africa, I think would be a big market for second life batteries. I think it's going to be a big fight between who wants is the lithium more valuable than the second life battery, which is a good thing.
Yeah. At
the end of the day, obviously power generation is a key driver of the environment. South Africa, we have most of our power generated by coal. Do you have a feeling on when does that parity happen? Or is it still cleaner using coal power and EV?
Well, no, I wouldn't. I mean, that part of the model is a problematic one. If I'm burning coal to make electricity to charge a battery, that part certainly doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah.
But what is happening in South Africa, if you look at the total energy program of South Africa, more and more renewable energy is being deployed.
Okay.
So that's the one aspect. So we're probably going to be deploying in the region of 2 to 3 gigawatts of renewable every year, in future. So at the moment it's still ramping up, but you will get there. And so at a certain point in time, you will have a lot of renewable. Taking that renewable and storing it in hydrogen, for example, and then deploying it is certainly feasible. The best is obviously taking the renewable and charging a battery directly. That's the most efficient model. Okay. But that then depends on how many battery electric vehicles are out there or how many batteries are in households.
Yep. Okay. I think we're at the start of the journey.
Definitely.
I think it's definitely the start. And I think it was even interesting that it was probably even the question or even the answer was a little bit approached even from a technical or from a technology perspective. I think even what we can see now, and I think it's the case across almost all over the places, limiting factor is still even the infrastructure, charging infrastructure. And I think we should even not underestimate that even this should even continue to be quite comfortable and convenient even then for the user. And this is definitely not the case today. And even when we see this solution, we see more even e-vehicles at scale on the street. I think there are definitely challenges, probably even things that make it not so comfortable as it is today with a normal diesel or even then the petrol car. And I think this will be an interesting one. And we even see already, even with all the green environmental impact on the one hand side and all the positive communication around it, even when it even then comes to infrastructure, even then to hydrogen infrastructure. Do we need pipelines? Even then in the country, even then ensure that we even then have the infrastructure in place, and there will definitely even then be probably even people who will not support it anymore. They even understand what will be even then the strong positive impact on the one hand side, but when it is definitely even then pretty close to their home, pretty close to their house, they would probably even get a different perspective on this. And I think there we are only at the beginning, because even there with renewable energies, or even then with infrastructure, with pipelines, this will definitely be something that can even have quite long planning cycles and definitely very long implementation cycles. And this could even then be a setbacks for the success of either an electric or even a hydrogen car.
Yep. Yeah, I would 100% agree. I was in Amsterdam 2 years ago, walking around in the middle of winter, and I saw a whole bunch of Teslas parked on the street with these long cables from the top of the building running down to the ground to charge their Teslas, leaving their windows open in the middle of winter so they can go to work the next day.
And to put this infrastructure in place in the streets, that even now in some larger cities programs, we have seen it, for example, in Paris. We have even seen it in Amsterdam. But do you then really would like to even then to have more the charging parks, or would you even then like to have a charging station more or less every 20 meters? Is this really what we want? This is what we would like even then that our cities look like in the future? And I don't have an answer for this, but I think it's definitely something, and even there are different concepts about it, and you can even then see even then in larger buildings where you probably even then have 100 or 200 people even then having an electric car. It's a huge challenge from an infrastructure perspective.
So I mean, what needs to go into that is the calculation of how much energy demand there really is, and how much is the vehicle really being driven every day. So if you are not a business user, or even a business user, drive to the office in the olden days in the morning and drive home in the evening, you're doing maybe 20, 30, 40 kilometers in one way, max. Okay. Your charging infrastructure will be laid out to handle that. It'll need to handle the peak when everybody comes home after work. Suddenly everyone's plugging in their electric vehicle.
And cooking.
And cooking at the same time. But if you take a look at, for example, buses, taxis, what do you think the average city bus, how far does it drive every day?
No idea.
Guess.
100 Ks? 200 Ks?
You're actually very close. It's between 200 and 300 Ks.
Okay.
So a Gautrain train bus does about 300 kilometers per day.
Okay.
So you can easily imagine that bus can do its 300 Ks during the day. It's plugged in the evening at 10 o'clock when Gautrain shuts down. The bus gets recharged during the night. Can be a reasonably slow process even. And then next day it's ready again. So, yes, there's a lot of hype around it, but at the end of the day, how bad is it? Okay.
But as I said, it is a hype, and you even can afford even then a pretty slow charging. There are other circumstances where you need quite a fast charging. Is it then always available? Or can you even then handle this? I think these are all questions that will definitely be considered even more from an infrastructure perspective than really from a pure car vehicle technology perspective. I think the challenges are definitely more in the infrastructure, and the challenges are probably even in industries that are closely working even with the automotive industry, but not within the automotive industry. And the solution must come from their side.
Absolutely. Maybe I'd like to excuse the pun, but shift gears to digital transformation and these concepts around digital transformation. Probably the right time to talk or ask the question about Expleo. Who you guys are, what you do, and what your focuses are.
So Expleo is the name of the company. It's actually a Latin term.
Okay.
It's a Latin word, and it's Latin for to complete, to fulfill or to complete.
Okay.
And Expleo was formed about 3-4 years ago out of the merger of two companies, AS Systems and SQS, European companies with a global footprint. And both coming really from a quality background, first of all, but the AS side coming from an engineering services point of view. So helping companies do engineering tasks.
Okay.
With a quality point of view. So that was the merger of the two companies. On the SQS side, the old SQS company, quality around software, mainly software. And that's the link to digital transformation. So if you think about it, what is digital? Digital is really taking an analog, whatever movement, activity, concept, anything that's you can only physically maybe look at, or you can physically follow.
Yep.
You're translating that into a digital picture,
Yep.
whatever it is. And that means software.
Yep.
So behind everything in future, and that's the digital transformation, you're going to have some form of software.
Yep.
And if you think it long term into the future, it's going to be a lot of AI, machine learning, input output, which is then controlled by software systems.
Yep.
So what do you need then? You need quality.
Yep.
And who do you call? You call Expleo to complete the process to a quality status. And that's really, in a nutshell, what Expleo is.
That's so relevant. I mean, Gendermark, as we evolve from a typical machine building company and we start to build these software products, the need is definitely there. We realize that we help our customers build components and parts following a very clear process to maintain the quality, but somehow we don't do that with our own software. And exactly to your point, as we digitize more and more, maintaining and ensuring the quality of the software product is becoming more and more important.
Right.
And we felt the pains of not doing that right.
Yes.
That's really an important part. The term Industry 4.0 celebrated 10 years this year at the virtual Hanover Messe. And I think we've evolved a lot from a digitalization perspective, and digital transformation perspective in the last 10 years. I think everyone understands that we're moving in this direction. What is your guys' opinion on the next 10 years? What do you see? What should we do? What should we watch out for?
Yeah, so I think the process is certainly going to be a long process. One can't package it into 10 years. I mean, it's an interesting thought to say, look back at what has happened in 10 years. And one will probably be quite disappointed about what has actually happened in the last 10 years. But I do think what, and we have to differentiate here between Industry 4.0 and what we in South Africa call the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Fourth Industrial Revolution was actually the term was coined by the World Economic Forum,
Yep.
by Klaus Schwab. And so if one looks purely at Industry 4.0, they've achieved a lot, okay, because they've looked at standards, they've looked at, a common platform, how to, simple things like robotics in industry and robotics collaboration and stuff like that, and human-machine interaction, safety,
Yep.
Stuff like that. I think they've achieved huge things.
And I sit next to a collaborative robot.
And it didn't hit you on the head.
Yeah.
So, and probably if you'd put your hand up, it would have stopped.
It would have stopped. Yeah.
So that type of thing, I think, has definitely achieved its goal. But if one goes, and it will continue.
Yep.
So there's no doubt about it that we're going to see that robot becoming more pervasive, be doing more. I've seen that one, not this particular model, but a similar one mounted to the roof and sweeping the floor. So you could have it, one in every room, and it just sorts out everything that needs to be sorted out in the room.
Yep.
Because it's so flexible. So where's that going? But is that now Industry 4.0 or is that the Fourth Industrial Revolution?
Yeah, good question. It's unknown actually in my mind.
Right.
Oh, it's blurred.
Right.
And in your opinion, what's the difference between the two?
So Industry 4.0 is an industry initiative where industry has said we need to set some standards. We need to, you're not going to stop the digital transformation. Okay, everything will be software controlled. You will have AI coming in and so on. So how am I translating this into production systems, logistics, or autonomous vehicles, and so on? Fourth Industrial Revolution is really ultimately talks about the singularity, the point of singularity. Okay,
It's
so
a scary point.
so the point of singularity being where all the combined intelligence of all computers and machines in the world exceeds the combined intelligence of all humans.
Yep.
Okay. That is an interesting point. And where machine and computer, or machine and robot, become one, and human become one.
Yep.
Okay, that's the point. And you can already see that all of us carry around a mobile phone. I mean, I think you don't leave home without your mobile phone these
Yep.
days. So that's the first step to already, a computer becoming part of you.
Yep.
Okay, so you are now already very close to the point of singularity.
Yep.
Okay, so the next step is where I start wearing an exoskeleton, or where I don't have my own car anymore. I'm using a machine to be transported, which can start thinking for itself as well.
And it's in control of
And
itself.
it's in control of itself. So that's not so far away.
Yep. I think that's a really good distinction. I struggle with that, the difference between Industry 4.0 and the fourth industrial revolution, because we are a manufacturing organization. So you kind of combine the two always. But I guess there's certainly a difference. Thanks for that. And maybe from a South African perspective, what are the in your opinion, the risks and maybe opportunities that we need to watch out for in both Industry 4.0 and the fourth industrial revolution?
So I think I only see the opportunities. There are risks, but that's the type of conversation. Is there a risk around using a mobile phone?
Yep.
Okay. And how has a mobile phone, a smartphone, affected the education of our children? How has it slowed down certain things that children should be learning, because they're not learning that anymore? They're not playing outside because they're on their smartphone the whole time,
Yep.
or their iPad the whole time. That's a different conversation, because you're going to have to weigh up the pros and the cons.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
But if I look at the benefits of having a mobile phone, smart mobile phone, okay, to me, I'm seeing advantages, many advantages. Be it accessibility to information, navigation systems, security, the ability to record things, photos, access to social media, connectivity. All
Remote
of those
support. We use our mobile phones for remote support.
IoT, effectively, So it's opened up a complete new world.
Yep.
If you now look at what the singularity guys say, is if you look at the change in the next 10 years, it's going to be more than in the last 30.
Yep.
I think it's very often quoted.
Yep.
So now just imagine 30 years ago, no internet, no mobile phones. So you now have all of that. And the change in the next 10 years is going to be more than what happened in the last 30.
Yeah.
So imagine where we're going to be in 10 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you say, okay, well, maybe there is a bit of risk coming in with that. Look at robotics, artificial intelligence.
Yep, absolutely.
How is that going to be handled? And then you'll see the next phase, and come back to Industry 4.0. The next part of Industry 4.0 is to start thinking about the potential negative consequences.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think we have to be acutely aware of those and manage that accordingly.
Yeah.
Interesting, you talk about the rate of change. I saw something the other day. It took us 3,000 years to go from abacus to iPad. And the same amount of change that happened in those 3,000 years we'll experience in the next 10 years. And the interesting point about that statement I saw was that it was 50 generations that experienced that change over the 3,000 years, more or less. And in the next 10 years, one generation will experience it all at one go. So I don't know if we are prepared for that, because it took 50 generations to get ready for the iPad. Now in the next 10 years, we have to experience the same amount of change in a significantly shorter amount of time.
Well, do you believe in the ability to teleport yourself? Possibility.
So
Teleportation.
the logic in my mind says absolutely not possible. but the child in me wants to believe it.
So technically, theoretically, it's possible. Because I can digitize you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can digitize your genome.
Yep.
I can digitize your biome, which is everything in and on you, all the
Bacteria
and microbes in and on you. And I can digitize your brain. I can record everything you've thought and remembered. So I've digitized you.
Yep.
So now I've got mechanisms to grow DNA, and from DNA you can grow cells.
Yep.
So theoretically, you could I digitize you, shoot a black box to Mars, okay, or even further, okay. Then when it's arrived and it's started and you switched on and working, then you send a signal. Here's the genome, the digital imprint of this human being. You regrow the human being, and you suddenly appear on that other planet. You've been teleported.
Well, I've got a twin.
You've got a twin.
Yep.
Yeah.
So not quite teleported.
So the question is, what happens to you here?
Yeah.
But probably by the time you're regrown, you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Well, I hope I'm alive. I hope I'm alive to see that happen. But that's the child in me wanting to see that. But the adult in me is maybe a bit afraid of that. So I'm like mixed feelings on it. But I hope I'm alive to see that happen.
I think we see it in 10 years, as you mentioned it. But even I think when we look on what happened even in this industry 4.0 over the past 10 years, I think what's definitely changing, I think, is everything where we can really unlock the potential of data. I think this is still something we know there is data. There are now different ways even to collect it, to mine it, to analyze it, to even use it for many of the examples that were even mentioned there by Martin. But on the other hand side, I think it's even then on us to see on how do we even control it. What is even then a governance that we collectively that we put in place to really keep it under control. Even then for the benefit of all the individuals and not only a few. And I think this is really there on the one hand side, really to see how can we really unlock all the potential of data that we can collect, because this is even enabling a lot of the AI, machine learning activities that are probably still a more early stage than we will see it already in a few years from now. But I think that we even need even a dialogue, a discussion on how to manage it, how to control it, and really how to really use it in the best interest of all the individuals.
Yep, absolutely. I think one of the unfortunate things that I've observed with COVID is actually how disconnected we are. I think we were all working as an amazing community when things were going well. And the moment something came in for attack, and we kind of closed ranks and looked after ourselves. And I hope that when it comes to that governance of data, we have to look at it collectively for the greater good, not for individual, whether it be nations or cities, etc. We should take the lesson out of COVID. We certainly showed our true colors.
And when we are, especially on this data layer, when we are there to protect it, when we see it only by organizations, only by nations, it will be more difficult even then to probably even see the next step. On the other hand side, I think it can even create a lot of other issues that we all don't want to see and don't want to have.
Yeah. So one final question on Expleo. You're obviously a multinational company that operates across the globe. How do you see the different challenges digital transformation brings in different countries with different social situations? South Africa is very different to the USA. India is very different to many other countries. Is there a different approach? Do we need different tools to adopt digital transformation in these different environments?
Well, yes and no. Okay, so I think it depends which aspect do you look at. Okay, so if you look at the working environment, we're seeing a trend to a more homogeneous working environment across the globe. So the pure fact that we use computers and we run certain software on the computers already means that we've all aligned how we're actually going to work. We're using computers and using, and generally, your usual suspects start appearing, your Microsofts and your Apples and so on, and your ways of collaborating on those platforms.
Yep.
Okay, so from a pure working environment, I think digital transformation is bringing the world closer.
Yep.
Okay. What it is also enabling is the localization, or what one could also call glocalization. So you globalized, but you're now relocalizing certain activities. Okay, so I can replicate things done in another country much more easily through digital processes.
Yeah.
Because I can specify whatever it is I want to do completely digitally. Okay, I can map it, I can reproduce it, I can test the quality. So if it's a software system, I can, let's say, software running on a certain hardware, I can check that the hardware is the right hardware, I load the software, I test it, and I can prove that it's working in an identical fashion in South Africa as it was working, let's say, in Germany, as an example. There will be cultural differences. So there will be different applications running on these things. And you can see the trends, how certain big things have taken off and others have fallen by the wayside.
Yeah.
The other trend is obviously, to things like Bitcoin.
Yep.
Okay. New currencies, encryption patterns. But what one can also see there is that blockchain, as it rolls out more and more, actually is a huge energy consumer.
Yep, we've seen that in a big way.
So I think everyone who's watched what happened with Bitcoin recently, when they tried to go transactional, every transaction will be involving a whole lot of other machines.
Yep.
Not only the machine that the transaction is happening on.
Yeah, it's the nature of blockchain.
Yeah, so there's a big rethink coming there as well.
Yep.
And so where that is going to go, nobody can really predict at this stage. And there will be local differences.
Yep.
That's really.
But I think you have there, when you look at the economies, the different ones, and you would do a baselining, I think you must accept and even respect that there are different starting positions on the one hand side when it comes to the economy itself, but on the other hand side, the people even working and acting in an economy, they have the same starting position. There are no differences.
Yes.
Yeah, in a country A or in a country B, in Germany, in South Africa, in China, in India, in the US. So the economy has a different starting position, but not the people even now focusing on the tasks.
Yes.
And that will be even interesting to see what will be there the next steps, because it is not necessary that we even probably in countries where we are starting from a different position, we have to catch up and do all the steps. We can skip a lot of things and go completely into a different direction.
Yep.
Even with the less legacy. So there is even a lot of opportunity because the people are coming from the same starting position, sharing the same expertise, the same knowledge about it. And so this is probably even only one factor. What is the current maturity in an economy?
Yep. I think that you raise a very important point about the legacy that might hold you back. Some societies don't have those legacy situations, and they can take 2-3 steps forward faster. Very good point.
And when I speak even there with young professionals in South Africa, in India, in Germany, in all the other places, they're coming. They have the same understanding about technology. They have the same understanding on how they can contribute even there. The context is slightly different.
Yep.
But the people are exactly the same. And that is, I think, even the user advantage. And this is even something that we should even build on. And not simply say, it was always like this in this country, and this country is more advanced. No, this is not the case, because the people sharing the same vision, having the same expertise. And this is even with the people where it becomes global in a faster way than really looking at nations, at regions, at countries, and the maturity there.
Yeah,
I think the advantage is the people.
I think that's a really interesting point.
So what I wanted to add to that was as well is, and we haven't talked about it, is, how do you collaborate?
Yep.
And I think having been here today and seen what you guys do and knowing what Expleo does, I think there's a huge space, and digital transformation is enabling it for even deeper collaboration than one would have done previously without digital transformation. So here we have the possibility of agreeing on a way of working, call it a platform. Okay. We can agree on certain quality standards that we work to, okay, using Industry 4.0 or whatever we want to call it, okay, Fourth Industrial Revolution. We can think about projects, and it might not be between Gendermark and Expleo, but it could be between 5 additional companies where we bring everyone together on the platform, and we manage the process of developing and implementing and managing it across a complete life cycle using product lifecycle management software as an example, but it doesn't need to be. The platform could use other software subsystems, but managing that in a digital space. Okay, so you're creating a digital twin of the relationship. You create a digital twin of the product that you're making, and you create a digital twin of the actual business. So those are the opportunities that are coming out of all of this, and that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe for people that don't understand the term PLM, maybe just give us a layman's explanation as to what is a PLM.
Yeah, so PLM as such is nothing new. Okay, it's a term is product lifecycle management, and I think every 5-year-old would understand. If you have something that I create today, it's going to have a lifetime. At the end, I'm going to throw it in a dustbin, okay, or it'll be broken.
Yep.
Okay. So the product lifecycle management has become so interesting because I'm handling it digitally. Okay, from requirements definition all the way through to end of life. Okay, so if I'm handling it from requirements definition through the design process, through the actual manufacturing process, the materials management, I can go back to the origin of the actual material that I've used because I can record that digitally.
Yeah.
And I'm managing all of that through to the end of production, release of the product. The product is now running in its life. It has a service life. At the end of service life, I need to get rid of it. Okay, I can go back to the origin digitally, push of a button. I can determine these are the difficult materials that were used in this product that need to be recycled in a clever way. Take the example of batteries, which we had earlier on. If I know what this battery was made of, I know what recycling process it has to go into.
Yeah.
And that's the cradle to grave of a product lifecycle management. And it's all done digitally.
Yeah.
I can also, and that's really good, is you develop this digital twin of the product. Take a vehicle. That vehicle lives for 10, 20 years, comes in for a service. I can find out what was done to that vehicle during its 10, 20-year life. I know every accident it had. I know who repaired it, what spare parts were used. Simple example. And I can map that onto virtually anything that we do. Any product.
Yeah.
Could be a software product, could be a hardware product, could be a combination.
Okay. Yeah, that's one of the big advantages of digital transformation. Makes things much more efficient.
That's true digital transformation.
Yeah. So Martin, obviously with this, these digital platforms, PLM being one of them, it's obviously all very software driven. And as I alluded to earlier, we've made a number of software mistakes or mistakes in our software that has caused problems on production lines, etc. What's your take on how we manage that and the importance of managing the quality of our software in this new world where everything becomes software?
Yeah. So, I think, and this is actually Ralph's mantra, is everybody understands quality. I don't think anybody wants to go to a restaurant and get bad quality food, or nobody wants to buy a car that's bad quality. Everyone is looking for quality. So quality is a given requirement. Okay, but how do you break down quality into all the processes to deliver, at the end of the day, a quality product or a quality experience? And what do you need to do that? Okay, and how much is it worth? Okay, so taking your example of the production line that has a fault, if you pick up that fault when there's a vehicle being produced and your production line breaks down and messes up a vehicle that's being produced because of the fault in the production, and that's an expensive fault.
Yeah, massively expensive.
So I'm sure that you're willing to pay a little bit at the beginning to run some tests, but obviously not excessively, because what is happening now is your software content in your production line is exploding.
Yep.
So every time you make a change in your software, you don't want to test the complete functionality of that production line. So you have to have test strategies.
Yep. Okay,
and that's what we specialize in. So we will help you do the quality assurance, but also the quality engineering. So understanding how to engineer quality into your processes, and then write you the tests and test cases and the test automation that you need. So you don't execute all test cases over the whole production line again. You don't have to change one thing, send that whole production line through tests again.
Yep.
So that's what we run under the banner of test automation and repeatability. So you build up a database, if I can call it that, of test cases.
Yeah.
Okay, and you understand, and you can run them.
Yeah.
And they run overnight, so everyone goes home, is fast asleep in bed, and the next morning you get your test report.
Yeah, that's so important. I can attest to the risks of not doing quality assurance on software. Unfortunately,
I think we all know the consequences of poor quality.
Yeah.
I think we even all understand the concept of quality, even in the impact, even then on productivity and quantity and speed, and how important even quality is. Even when we translate it into risk, even for our business, when we don't even then achieve the necessary quality levels. And as Martin said, there are concepts, there are processes that you can put in place, really even then to ensure on the one hand side the quality for software that is supporting your business processes, but especially there we have even seen here a few great examples where you even see that software even becomes now part of your offering, of your portfolio, where even software is then the product itself.
Yep.
And not only that, even software is part of your product. It is 100% of the product. And I think this is even on the one hand side creating good and new business opportunities for you. On the other hand side, even then, I think just another confirmation how important quality is, as even what your customers have been seen in the past, when you have even then deployed your solutions, when you have the production lines even then put in place at the customer side. Customers will have exactly the same expectation on quality when they even get software from you.
Yep. And I think that even we are having to change our mindsets. When we make a machine frame, we measure it to see if it's correct.
Yeah.
But when we write a piece of software, we're not measuring it to see if it's correct.
And at the end, you have to apply the same principles.
Yep, absolutely. And it's this understanding that software is actually a product.
Yeah.
It's not just a byproduct of the machine. It's actually
and it's a product. And even when you're even working even here then on the machines you're doing with teams, the people know exactly what to do, how to work, how to interact. And you need the same synchronization, the same interaction between team members, even when you develop the software.
Yep.
Between testing specialists, design specialists, software implementation, software engineers, and I think that is ultimately you apply similar or even the same concepts.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, gentlemen. I want to close off with one question each, the same question to both of you. What would you like your legacies to be? We kind of ask everyone that comes onto the podcast that question. Maybe Ralph, you can go first.
I'll let
Martin
go
go
first.
Well, it's a good question. Everyone would naturally say, "Oh, I want to be remembered," but they might remember me for the wrong things.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of people are remembered.
but for all the
wrong
bad
reasons.
things.
Yep.
So I think the legacy is your legacy lives on, obviously in the people that you've interacted with.
Yeah.
Okay. So be it in the private environment, that's your family, your friends, and so on. And in the business environment, it lives on in the companies that you've worked for, worked with, and the products you've developed or made or put out there. Okay, and those products are many different things. So I always like to think of if you had to create your own website, and there was a website builder called me.com. That brought me onto this. So when you think about your life, think about your me.com.
Yeah.
Think about you filling it all out. Okay. And so on the me.com, you'll have all the events that happen.
The good and the bad.
And then ultimately, you'll have some form of red thread.
Yeah.
Okay. My personal red thread, and I was thinking back to it a couple of weeks ago, is digital transformation. And I'm showing my age now, I did a Master of Science in 1986, 87. And the topic of the course was digital systems.
Okay.
Now you must imagine, 1986 was the beginning, the first IBM PC ATs came out.
Yep.
There was no Windows.
No.
We still worked with DEC computers and Fortran and stuff like that. Pascal, yes.
Basic.
There was a language in the UK called Ada, one programming language. It disappeared, but it was the first object-oriented.
Oh, really? Wow.
Was the definition of object orientation.
Okay.
So at that point, we were thinking digital transformation.
Wow.
So, and now we're doing it. And we're going to accelerate.
Awesome.
Probably, definitely then over the next 10 years. So I think it's, and it was interesting, Martin, even when you said, okay, what is even then the me? And when I would look at it, and definitely from a legacy perspective, or what I believe is probably then important is really there to see what is a person. As I think we see too many things even looking on what was an achievement, what was a role, what was a job, what was a decision, what was the context. And I think for me, and even when I would probably even look at it more from a approach it more there from a legacy perspective, I think it would definitely be me as a person. And even then how I would probably even then was be remembered or be perceived even then only as a person, even without not even in a different context, just really to say, okay, the person, and hopefully then probably even as someone where people would say, okay, he has always tried to put the person first and nothing else. That is probably something that I would have in mind even then.
That's amazing.
When it comes a little bit then to legacy.
Yeah.
Looking at the human being.
Yeah.
We come back full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Fascinating conversation. Thanks a lot.